We are back and here to wrap up season 1 of the podcast. Hey all, it's Tony Volpicello and thanks so much for joining. Today's episode will include a quick recap of our first 7 episodes, a top 10 list of career advice from a new friend of mine, a preview of season 2, and a quick highlight of our new Advice Under 2 Minutes series called Puzzle Pieces. Hey, before we dive in, I do want to pause for some thank yous because they're well deserved. First to Jim, Kevin, and Anna for the interview time. The 3 of you sharing your voices added so much credibility to the podcast. I can't thank you enough. To my anonymous guests for sharing their advice to the 25-year-old selves, thank you so much. Of course, to my friends and family, your constant positivity and support was so uplifting and so motivational. I can't thank you enough. To my daughter specifically for an absolutely amazing website, thank you so much for your support. And of course, to my listeners for taking a chance and taking the time to discover the Career Jigsaw. I thank you all so very much. It's been a great journey. I am anxious to wrap up season 1 and equally as anxious to tackle season 2. And I have to tell you, starting a podcast might have been a bit daunting at first, but to me it was mostly exciting. Learning the ins and outs of creating content, editing, uploading, generating an audience. It was a great learning experience. I highly recommend it. And I'm happy to share what I learned with anyone out there if you're looking to do the same. Shoot me a note at thecareerjigsaw@gmail.com and I'd be happy to help. So let's move on to our episode-by-episode recap. We started with resumes and we talked about the resumes from the point of view of the creator, not the interviewer. And we really talked through how to think about your resume differently, that it's not a job application, that it must separate you from everybody else, that its goal is to land you an interview and go from an applicant pool to a candidate pool. And along the way, we actually introduced you to ChatGPT and how to use it smartly to help design your resume. And then as we got further into the episodes, talking about interviews and how to get better prepared for an interview. So then we moved to interviews. And again, we talked about it from the point of view of the candidate. We talked specifically about how to prepare and how to prepare better, how to take that nervous energy and build confidence. And we talked a lot about how to apply my hack that designed a framework to answer every interview question. Once we completed the interview preparation for the candidate, we shifted gears and moved to the hiring manager and their point of view. And we discussed in detail how to build a customized interview agenda specific to the role and resume, and how, if done right, this would dramatically help you make a better hiring decision. We then moved to episode 4, and we talked about development plans from everyone's point of view. And the goal here was to create, execute, update, repeat. Create, execute, update, repeat. That's the development plan cycle. And we really showed everyone a framework for how to create a development plan, what it should include, and I make sure it's a living, breathing document that gives you a detailed map on how to move your career forward, how to develop yourself better and get ready for that next role. Moving to episode 5, we got in our DeLoreans and we asked some leaders out there if you could go back in time, take that DeLorean out for a ride, and give advice to your 25-year-old self, what would it be? And we heard some great career advice from building a network, having a mentor, a lot about risk-taking. So interesting to hear from so many leaders about what they could do if they can go back and do something either more of or differently. But I thought pausing and hearing some advice, especially from those leaders who've been enrolled for a while, was incredibly useful. So again, thanks to those leaders for sharing. In episodes 6 and 7, we shifted gears again and implemented a long interview process. We dedicated entire episodes to a full-length interview. We were able to go deep on some topics and really hear from leaders with decades of experience in areas like how to develop a great relationship with your boss, how to build a broad network, the value of taking on different roles, the pros and cons of working for one company versus many, and challenges facing women in the workplace today. Now, having said that, we've only scratched the surface. At 20 minutes an episode, we have barely talked about these incredibly important topics in career advice, and that's why I'm so excited in a few short weeks to kick off season 2. So I know I mentioned before I have advice to share with you from a new friend of mine. So my new friend is ChatGPT. It is an amazing tool. Boy, when you get stuck or you just need the right quote or the right list or the right info to kind of kickstart something on your mind, ChatGPT can play an incredibly important role. Now, it doesn't mean it should do all the work for you, but it could be a great partner. And that's the way I've looked at ChatGPT through the first 7 episodes of the Career Jigsaw. So, in the spirit of sharing, I went to my new friend ChatGPT and asked it for the top 10 pieces of career advice. And here's what she had to say. First, know your strengths and weaknesses, which I thought was really critical, yet I'm not sure we focus enough on one or the other. Sometimes we let our strengths lead the way, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but could create a blinder for what your weaknesses are. Or we focus too much on our weaknesses and we come across maybe not as confident as we could be. And in doing that, we don't focus and leverage our strengths, which are crucial. So I thought, that tip number 1 was pretty important. Advice number 2, set clear goals. Define your short-term and long-term career goals, and then have objectives to help you stay focused and motivated. And I know we talked a lot about that in development plans, but having those goals and then a plan to get there, is better than no plan at all. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Tip number 3, seek mentorship. So this podcast, the spirit of it, I think, through the first 7 episodes, has been to lean on leaders out there who have got decades worth of experience and figure out ways to share their guidance, their experiences, and their insights. So you making sure that you're seeking out a mentor in your life can be instrumental in your career growth. So if you don't have a mentor now, think about who that could be. You can look up what a great mentor should include, who it should be and shouldn't be. And we've talked about that in prior episodes. It definitely should not be just your boss. Your boss can play a mentor role, but they really should not be your full-time mentor. Career advice number 4, network regularly. Build and maintain a professional relationship and a professional network with others. That's critical to opening up doors to new opportunities and to provide support when you need it. Tip number 5, and this again goes so hand in hand with development plans, but sometimes we get very stuck in the mud. It's keep learning. Think about it. Do you have a plan to understand and learn new things, or are you simply going through the motions every day? Now, I would argue if you are, you're probably very bored, you're not challenged, and your career is not moving the way you want it to. And if that's your goal, then the learning piece could be critical to how you develop your performance plan and how you get ahead. Tip number 6, be adaptable. And when I see this, I think about this as a manager, and those who worked for me, when they were able to flex between different skills, be adaptable, those people you could throw a curveball to and they try to hit out of the park, not a swing and a miss. They would at least try, to me, was key. And adaptability, I think, is such an underrated skill in today's world. We get again, I know I said it before, but stuck in the mud. To me, adaptability, being able to play a jack of all roles, jack of all trades, can really go a long way, not only in your career, but in your relationship with the people around you. Career advice tip number 7, communicate effectively. And this is very essential to a good career and to good work relationships, but it does take a bit of practice. And every time I see a breakdown in a relationship, whether it's on TV, in real life, I usually see those who are analyzing it later on go back to bad communication. And there's one piece that I think we take for granted. So when you hear effectively communicate, you think, well, I have to say what I'm saying better than I'm saying it. I have to be more clear. I have to be more concise. I have to be a better presenter of information. Yes, that's all true. But it also means you have to be a better listener. And it doesn't mean just hearing. It means listening. To really understand what the other person's trying to tell you and take the time not only to hear it and even listen, but to digest it. I think, again, that's so critical. So I know this one was number 7. I could argue maybe number 1 in the best advice we could give you today, but working on your communication skills, becoming a master at being able to give and receive information in a way that makes everyone better is definitely a skill worth mastering. Career tip number 8, maintaining a work-life balance. And I know that sounds easy, sounds obvious, sounds like a huge challenge, and it's all of those and more. But we've all seen it. When your work relationships and your work life isn't great, that typically spills over into your home life. And we all know for sure when your home life isn't great, it always spills over into your work life. You cannot separate the two. So making sure that there's balance between the two is critical to help you prevent burnout and improve your overall well-being. This alone could be an episode in and of itself, but making the list of top 10 career advice tips today, I think it's worth stating. Career tip number 9, take initiative. And I love this one because it speaks to what I always took pride in, which was being very proactive. So don't sit back and wait for things to come to you. Go out there, seek new challenges, make suggestions where you see areas of improvement that could be needed, and also take initiative in taking on more responsibility. It'll make you feel like you're contributing more and certainly will lift everyone around you. Speaking of lifting everyone around you, career tip number 10, stay positive and persistent. Positivity to me breeds positivity. When one person in the group is positive, they tend to bring the rest of that group up around them and squash the negativity that could exist in a workplace. So maintaining a positive attitude, learning from failures, which I am a passionate believer. I think I've said it before. You learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes is key. And it will help you persevere toward your goals. So always stay positive, especially during the tough times. Now, I know I mentioned this is the top 10 list, but I have an 11th career tip for you. And I've been looking to weave this thing, this tip, this phrase, this advice into prior podcasts. I never really felt like I had the right time to do it. And today it struck me, add it to the list because it's something I wanted to share and it's something I wanted to say. The tip is simple. Don't be the jerk. I've worked in way too many workplaces where 99% of the time, someone was always the jerk. There's always someone on a team who everyone would vote off the team, plays a role of negativity, or they're selfish, or they're arrogant, or they don't share their ideas, or they're too competitive. We all know, you may be on a team now, who the jerk is. So the piece of advice is take a step back, look in the mirror, be honest with yourself, and ask yourself a somewhat rhetorical question. Am I the jerk? And again, look through selfishness, arrogance. Are you sharing ideas? And if that's the case, it may be time to go back to work with a new attitude, a new perspective, and a new commitment. But again, tip number 11, don't be the jerk. So when I looked at this list of 11 tips for career advice, what immediately occurred to me is, wow, if I'm struggling to figure out what my development plan should be and what to include, go to this list. You can look at it and say, oh, wow, tip number 4, network regularly. I didn't do a great job of developing my professional network. I'm going to put that on my list. Or communicate effectively and working on communication skills. Sounds great. I mean, those are words to say, but how do you go do that? How you operationalize that can become, again, part of your development plan. Or seeking a mentor, again, a great piece of advice, but putting that on your development plan goes from an idea to now a plan of attack. So again, talk about topics for your development plan. This list of 11 clearly could make anyone's development plan. All right, so let's move forward a bit and talk about what's in store next for the Career Jigsaw. So 2 key things. First, we will have a season 2. It will be the same size, 7 or 8 episodes. And we will focus a little bit differently on career elements. So we will have some industry spotlights in there. We'll have guest speakers on from industries outside of the one I worked in and all of my experts have worked in, which was financial services. So we'll weave those in season 2. We'll have some panel discussion. So I've had a few episodes in season 1 where we had a guest speaker come on and talk for a bit, in some cases the entire episode, about their career advice. So we're going to expand that. The goal will still be around 20 minutes. We may go to 30 in some of these episodes, but we'll have broader panels to be able to discuss topics a bit deeper. Speaking of topics, we will broaden our topics to talk about things like stress in the workplace and how to reduce it. I can't say the word eliminate may enter that episode, but we will talk about things like that. And we'll also switch gears and talk about the fact that, hey, you got the job. Now, how do you keep the job? Because I do feel season 1 was all about getting you the job, building you to be a little bit better. We, of course, talked about interview skills and resumes and a bit of development plan. But I think we've got some more meat on the bone in terms of discussing, now that you have the job, how do you keep the job? So in addition to season 1 and upcoming season 2 for the podcast, we're also going to launch something new. So my idea is that we're going to share small pieces of advice on a regular basis in under 2 minutes or less. So these small segments will be called puzzle pieces, and you'll see those very, very soon between seasons 1 and season 2. 2 last things to share before we wrap. First, we've dabbled with a resume review service, which is a free service. And what I mean dabbled is we've circulated it out there, the idea, but we haven't gone really deep with it. And the concept here is we're building the capability to be able to offer free of charge to anyone who wants it a review of their resume. This is not a resume preparation service. This is a resume review service. But essentially, you can send us your resume, and the goal will be to get back to you with 2 or 3 pieces of positive feedback and also 2 or 3 recommendations of what you could do to take your resume to the next level. So we're going to invest more time in getting that word out there that this is a free review and everyone should take advantage of it. So if you're sitting out there with a resume now, go to our website, thecareerjigsaw.com, hit the resume review link, and upload your resume, and we will get back to you with some feedback as I just discussed. Secondly, I think I've probably mentioned in all 7 episodes the value of a mentor. So what we're looking to launch is a mentor network. And essentially what this is a bit of a, I'll nickname it a dating service, but the goal here is to get mentors and mentees together, pair them up. So the mentors out there can pay it forward, their experience and what their careers help them do, and sharing that. And then for my mentees out there, giving you a place to go to get this guidance. Again, we're looking to create this as a free service. So the ask out there is pretty simple if you're a listener. If you want to be a mentor or a mentee, go to our mentor network link, again, at thecareerjigsaw.com. Let us know you're volunteering to be one or the other or both, and we'll begin that process. So let me end the way I began. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been a blast so far, and I'm just getting started. Well, podcast people, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for listening in today. If you like what you heard, keep listening, follow us, etc. You know the drill. And also, check out our website at thecareerjigsaw.com. Again, thanks so much for tuning in, and more to come next week. Be safe, all.